My name is John Miller. I was raised in a very typical household, not one where special luxuries were afforded, but we lived comfortably. Our neighborhood was filled with affluent families, and our home stood out like it had wandered into an upscale residential area. Among these, there was one particularly luxurious and large house where my classmate, David, lived. David's parents had climbed to the top of the corporate ladder, holding executive positions at a major company. To anyone looking in, David was the epitome of a privileged young master. I would always watch, curious, as David's family left in their luxury car, unlike any I had seen elsewhere. David, perhaps influenced by his family environment, had a high sense of pride and often tried to assert his dominance in various situations. "John, what did you have for dinner last night?" "We went to a fast food place with my family." "Is that the dirt cheap one?" "Yes, but..." "Really? I didn't know people actually go to such cheap places." "Sorry about that." "No, I should be the one apologizing. I didn't realize your family was that low." After such conversations, David would go on to describe how lavish his own family's meals were. It might seem like innocent boasting from a child. But after boasting, David would deride my family's situation by comparison. Given that we grew up together and saw each other daily, I suppose this had become a routine occurrence. I suppose it's because he did this so frequently that I can't recall every instance. Though I was often annoyed by David's attitude, part of me had resigned to it as something inevitable. He excelled in both academics and sports, shining in tests and sports days. His appearance was also striking, and on Valentine's Day, he received an innumerable amount of chocolates. "Such cheap things are not worth consuming," he would say, throwing them all away. Classmates, regardless of gender, looked at David with envy or resentment in various ways. Even though I was bullied almost every day, I still admired his talent. Sometimes, I would even genuinely praise him in response to the dominance he tried to assert. Over the weekend, I just flew to the Maldives. "Really? No way. I've flown so much I'm getting tired of it. You wouldn't understand." "Well, that's incredible. I've never been abroad. Tell me all about it." "Oh, sure, if you want." Hearing about experiences I'd never had from David was something I looked forward to. Of course, only on topics I was interested in, but it was amusing to see David taken aback by such reactions. He probably wanted to see a frustrated look on my face. Because we were neighbors, our families were also closely acquainted. David's father, being a car enthusiast, would often invite me for drives. The car we rode in was a luxury vehicle unlike any I had seen elsewhere. David's father was well versed in all things luxury cars and would answer any simple questions I had about them. Perhaps influenced by his father, David was knowledgeable about luxury cars, and I would listen to them talk about cars from the back seat. Through listening to their conversations, I found myself developing an interest in luxury cars as well. Someday, I wanted to drive a car like that myself. I truly believed that. Cars are really great, aren't they? Yeah, they are. Let's go for a drive together someday. Someday, the two of us would go out in a car I'd be driving. I didn't know when that would be, but we made such innocent promises to each other. When David's father was changing cars, I would go to the exhibitions with them and even take test drives. "This car is cool." "Well, my family could easily buy it, but you probably couldn't." "No way, I'll work hard so I can afford it." "Impossible. Don't dream too much." "I won't let it end as just a dream. I'll drive an even higher-ranked car." Yeah, it's free to say it." David didn't believe in my dreams at all, not even half-heartedly. Even so, at that moment, I made a resolution in my heart. Someday, I would definitely drive a car that was 2 ranks higher than those showcased at the exhibitions. Despite everything, David and I, sharing a love for cars, spent our days getting along somehow. However, the mounting behavior that was laughable when we were younger gradually became truly annoying as we grew up. Especially during periods involving exam studies and career choices, it became harder to bear due to the lack of mental leeway. As we grew older, the nature of the dominance became more intense, but my ability to admire it had vanished. With my grades, I'll easily pass. I see. Well, you're not that smart, so only bottom-tier schools for you. Yeah, maybe. I would respond with such an enthusiastic replies. David probably didn't find it amusing either. We didn't have a particular fight, but we gradually drifted apart. Once I started university and moved into a dorm, we stopped meeting altogether. And then, 10 years later, I was wearing a black suit, attending a luxury car exhibition. Stroking the car I had longed for, childhood memories flooded back. What was once only a dream had become reality, and I was now living the life I had aspired to. I felt proud. Exploring the exhibition with the same excitement I had as a child, I was suddenly approached from behind. Huh? It was just one word, but I recognized that voice immediately and turned around in surprise. Standing there was, indeed, David. He had become a man who looked sharp in a suit. It was to be expected, given his handsome appearance since childhood. Surprised by the sudden reunion, David opened his mouth as if in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" "I have every right to be at this exhibition." As I responded, David suddenly burst into laughter. Confused and silent, he started to speak after a good laugh. "Well, a poor person rarely gets to touch a luxury car. It's only natural you'd want to see one." It seems his habit of looking down on others hasn't changed since we were kids. If anything, it feels like it's gotten worse. It's not unreasonable for him to find it odd that I was at the exhibition alone. Back when we were kids, the only way I could go was if David's father took us. "Show me the car you came in if you drove here." "Yes, sure, but you came here in some cheap car, right? That's just too funny." David spoke loudly, as if to make sure everyone at the venue could hear him. People around us glanced over, wondering what was going on, but David didn't care. "A rickety old compact car or something?" "No, that's not it." "I get it. The punchline is you actually came on a bicycle, right? Just wait outside in front of the entrance. I'll bring my car round." Convinced that explaining any further would be pointless, I headed to the parking lot. "Don't try to sneak away because you're embarrassed to show me your car." David's mocking voice called after me. I had no such intention. I got into my car and drove it to the main entrance where David was waiting. The moment David saw my car, his face went pale. What is this?" "Don't you remember? We talked about this when we were kids." It's no wonder David was shocked. The car I was driving was a luxury vehicle 2 ranks higher than those we had dreamed about as children. Alternating his gaze between me in the driver's seat and the car, David was at a loss for words. "This is a rental, right? There's no way you could afford something like this." "Want to see the vehicle registration? It's genuinely my car." David, unable to accept the reality, just seemed baffled. "How can you afford to drive this?" "Well, it's a long story." I decided to explain how I got to this point. After graduating from college, I had planned to work at the company where my father was employed. It was a small to mid-sized company in the automotive industry, but I had absorbed knowledge about luxury cars since I was young, which made me favored by President Thompson. My father's company held a cherry blossom viewing event every year that families could attend, and that's where I met President Thompson. Impressed by my extensive knowledge of luxury cars, he took a strong interest in me. I was overwhelmed by his enthusiasm. Initially, I thought I'd just be working as an ordinary employee, but it turned out differently. He had been planning to expand into the luxury car business and chose me to play a key role in this venture. Despite having almost no experience as a working adult, he supported me in management. My childhood acquired knowledge proved to be valuable, and the luxury car business flourished. The luxury car business eventually became independent and was incorporated. Moreover, I was appointed as the president of that company. You being a CEO, but you were so poor back then. I worked hard on my own, you know. David was completely lost for words. I added another shocking fact as if to drive the point home. I'm actually leading the charge for this exhibition. What? David, unable to comprehend, let out a stunned exclamation. He probably never imagined that the person he looked down upon as poor would be hosting a luxury car exhibition. David pinched his own cheek with trembling hands, as if to check whether he was dreaming. The sight was so amusing that I couldn't help but laugh. I myself never thought I'd lead such an extraordinary life. Who would have thought something like this would happen? David struggled to organize his thoughts, trying to come to terms with reality. The pain of not wanting to accept it was palpable, and I understood it all too well. Whether you accept it or not, this is reality. My words seemed to be the final blow. As understanding finally dawned on him, David collapsed to his knees. Approaching him out of concern, I saw that he was crying with his face turned downward. Having interacted with him since childhood, this was the first time I saw him cry. As I hesitated over what to say, David spoke in a small voice. Why are you leading a better life than me?" David's muttering was filled with a sense of tragedy. I was surprised, but I hadn't expected him to be this shocked. Honestly, his words were nothing but unreasonable. I had made an effort in my own way and had done nothing to feel guilty about. Yet, looking at David crying, I didn't feel any anger. Instead, a calmness began to overflow within me. I spoke to David softly. Initially, my interest in this field and my desire to learn more were all thanks to you, David. I truly appreciate it. Kneeling down, I grabbed David's hand. Intending to convey my gratitude directly through my palm, I gripped it firmly. Though not much time had passed since he started crying, David's eyes were already very swollen when he looked up. His high pride must have found it unacceptable that I, whom he had always looked down upon, had become a CEO. That was what I thought, but then David said something unexpected. "I'm sorry for everything up until now. What's gotten into you all of a sudden?" I couldn't help but laugh at his unexpected words. David had never apologized to me before. To my surprise, David began to talk about his circumstances up to that point. "I always made remarks as if I were superior to you, but it was all just a bluff." A bluff? It was a reaction to the unrealistic expectations and pressure from my parents. I couldn't maintain my sense of self unless I acted like I was amazing. Is that so? I remember being lectured until late at night if I got even slightly bad grades on a test. If it's not 100 points, it might as well be 0, they'd say. Your parents were that strict. David felt despair at not being allowed to do what he wanted and having his future predetermined as the heir to the company. He said that he had always tried desperately to make himself seem greater, not wanting others to realize how he truly felt. Seeing David tearfully speak, I reflected on our past. I thought back on all the times he had looked down on me. Knowing now the harsh pressures he had endured since childhood made all the resentment I had felt towards him naturally fade away. It must have taken a lot of courage for him to speak so honestly. I listened to David's story with a very calm heart. I kept doing a job I didn't want to do and felt sick of it all the time. Is that so? When I heard this exhibition was being held, I somehow found myself drawn here without realizing it. So, we ended up having this unexpected reunion. Smiling at him, David finally showed me a smile in return. He must have had much harder days than I could imagine. I also want to do what I love, without being bound by anything, just like you, John. David murmured as if talking to himself. I didn't miss what he said. How about we grow the company together? What? You love luxury cars, right? So let's work in that field together. Are you really inviting me, even after I've made fun of you so much? Didn't we say we'd go for a drive someday? Let's drive this big car called a company together. I felt a bit embarrassed by my own words, but I was also pleased that I could say something like this. Deep down, I had always hoped for this. I wanted to work with David in a field related to our shared passion for luxury cars. It was a dream I had given up on, thinking it would be scoffed at. But now, David was crying tears of joy at my words. Thank you, John. I'll work really hard. Of course, I'm counting on you to work hard. Thank you, President Miller. Stop that, it feels weird. Just John, like always. David and I laughed together at that. Shortly after, David quit his job and joined my company. His knowledge of luxury cars, inherited from his father, made him an immediate asset. With David's help, our luxury car business grew even more than before. I never imagined something like this would happen, but I'm so glad I held that exhibition. David, now an employee of my company, stopped pretending to be someone he wasn't and stopped looking down on others. I was amazed to see him treating everyone equally, regardless of their status. It made me realize that people can change significantly if they truly want to. I couldn't help but smile wryly, thinking that my younger self would never believe this story. On weekends, going for drives became our routine. We'd talk about the future of our business and our favorite cars until the day turned to night. I was amazed that such luxurious time could exist. It became precious to me. After drifting apart, I am now working together with David like this. As I gripped the steering wheel, I felt invigorated by the bond that cars had rekindled between us.